Following in the tradition begun by Dr. Don Wildman, this is the American Family Association's Noonday Get-Together, where we look at the world through a biblical worldview. AFA Today.
Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us in New York. It is a busy day. It's a full day, start of a busy weekend for the McCullough family personally, but I hope your day is going well. My day started on a sour note as I read the early headline on onenewsnow.com, 7 million votes later, legal fight to defend Prop 8, now dead in California. And you can go to onenewsnow.com and read the story. I'm giving you my thoughts, kind of unfiltered even, this afternoon on why I believe the marriage movement has hit an impossible wall. Again, barring, nothing is too great for God. I believe that. But I don't know that the people of God in this nation really have the will to do what is necessary to protect marriage, and I don't know that it would even matter. The level of engagement, the level of vigilance, the level of persistence. See, in California, you had generation after generation of government handouts create a more or less government-dependent class that have now pretty much permanently installed a secular, religiously hostile, liberal left wing into its statewide politics. And because people want things like welfare and free health care and food stamps and free meals for their kids at school and everything else, they trade their soul for those things. Because we don't teach individual responsibility in our politics, you know, in the pro-family movement, we don't shun it, but we don't do anything on economics and the personal impact that your economic situation has on the social issues. We just get up and argue about life and marriage, and then we sit down, and the culture laughs at us, and we wonder why. See, they figured out a part of the game that we haven't been willing to embrace in its totality, because we don't want to say things that are divisive. We don't want to tell people that if you're living on welfare, you shouldn't be. Because when you live on welfare, what you end up doing is empowering people to make decisions that may run diametrically opposed to what you actually believe about God and about things that are very important to God. We don't have the guts in the pro-family movement to say, it's really important that we have positions on tax policy. You know, we stand up and we argue on cable television for our little bit, and we go to our Values Voters Summit, which I love. We're going to be there this year. Love the people there. But we're so far behind in the game. And I don't think that marriage has a limb to stand on. I think we're going to win the issue of life. I do. I honestly believe that that's going to turn around, because the generations that are coming up are seeing through technology that those are not just clusters of cells. Those are human beings. And for people of faith, they understand that they're made in the image of God. But on the marriage issue, we've been intellectually lazy. We haven't been rigorous in our defense and thought and structure and discussion of it. We haven't gone into the details of saying, demonstrate for me where the cause of homosexual behaviors come from. And we haven't grown up lawyers going to law school that are able to come out of law school arguing these things in courts. And we haven't made culturally impacting media that changes people's minds. We've just been content to go do our part voting, to get on talk radio and to yammer at each other about how right we are. And then we go to church, and then we go home. And it's our fault. It's the church's fault. We have remained unengaged, uninspired, and uncommitted. So this is what we get. We get the death knell of the marriage issue. And friends, it's going to go far beyond that. It's going to go far beyond that, because what's going to happen is we're going to lose marriage. It's going to sweep across every state. Some judge will be found in every jurisdiction somewhere that will uphold this. And what will become the case is there'll be the snowballing effect, and in the legal arena, you're not even going to find lawyers that are going to want to defend this stuff because they're going to be like, it's an impossible thing, we can't win. And so the aura of inevitability begins to take over, and the snowball gets bigger, and before you know it, it's as big as a snow boulder, and there's not going to be any truth to it. There's no justification in our practice of law that we should give people favor because of behaviors that they exhibit. There's nothing in our there's no precedence for that in law. None. But they're going to say, well, nobody else believes that so-and-so's not made this way, so we're going to have to just going to have to go along on this. We haven't discovered a cause of homosexuality. There's no genetic biological determiner to demonstrate what it is. There's ample evidence that every sex act someone engages in is one that they've chosen to engage in. There's ample evidence of that truth. In fact, we limit people's choices of sex acts all the time in law. We don't allow relatives that are within a certain range of relation within the family to marry and to have sex legally. We prevent that from happening in the code of law. Why? Because, up till now we said, well, that's morally repugnant and it's also medically dangerous. And so therefore we wouldn't want to endanger somebody's life medically because they just had a sexual desire, would we? Except when it comes to gay men, and they get all kinds of diseases, and we're okay with that as long as we don't say we disagree with the acts that they're performing. Then we're okay with them destroying each other physically and through disease and through other elements, and we're okay with whatever they want to do. The culture is what I'm saying. Which, when the church isn't effective, the culture just goes into rampaging heat. We can't stop them if we're not involved. So what you have is discrimination against people that want to have sex with family members. We don't let that happen. And mark my words, friends, in all the Western European countries where marriage definition has been changed, and then there's no definition to marriage at all, it just means anything. Shortly thereafter, the incest laws all fall too. So it's kind of this slippery slope. You begin to see and view the unique and distinct sexual relationship that is marriage. You begin to see that as something that's very ordinary and mundane and not distinct at all. And then all of a sudden you're saying, well, what's the big deal if brothers and sisters or kids and children and parents or whatever, they just lift those and they just go away. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a brother and sister that had created a quote, family, and they'd had 4 children, and the German authorities, they were in Germany. Germany was one of the countries that still prosecuted incest laws, and they were trying to take the kids from the parents, and Germany was being ridiculed and denounced by all the other countries in Europe, saying, why are you so narrow-minded and backwards on this? This was a few years ago. Friends, I'm not saying it's going to be here tomorrow, but we're on our way. We are on our way. But incest isn't the only sexual relationship that we limit by law. There would be men that you could ask, do you believe you were born to have sex with many women? They would say, yes, I have that natural urge. I was born that way. Because that's the trick phrase, right? I'm born this way, so you can't criticize me for being born this way. Because if I'm born a certain way, I have to be a slave to whatever I feel like it is that I was born as. I can't exercise free will. I can't exercise choice to say no or to limit or to be restrained. No, I have to bleed my sexuality onto every element of culture and life, no matter how offensive, no matter how in anybody's face. I have to do it because I'm a slave to this sexual drive. But see, we limit men and women that have that sexual drive and that urge to that degree, so that if they were saying, well, I was born in such a way that I'm compulsed to have sex every time I feel the need to. So if I have to force myself on a woman that's very attractive, and by the way, she was wearing a short skirt, so she kind of had it coming anyway. I mean, this is how people think. Then our law says no. We don't allow you to have forcible sex. on someone who's non-consenting. We call that rape. We discriminate against people who have those sexual urges, and we say you will not be allowed to practice that sexual practice legally. Now, most of the time we discriminate against them when it's an older man indoctrinating a younger man into a homosexual relationship, and it may not be something that the younger man wants. We don't seem to prosecute that. But in other situations, we tend to prosecute it. So there's no science behind a rational argument for traditional marriage to be subjected to being a run-of-the-mill, non-distinct sexual relationship like all other sexual relationships. There's no law precedent that says it should be. So how did the judge get away with doing this? It's really simple. People voted that government into place, those leaders into place. They didn't defend the law. And when it got kicked back, it went to a judge that doesn't believe in, I don't know what he believes in. He doesn't believe in the tradition or the unique sanctity that is marriage. So now you have the votes. 2 statewide votes in California that were won by overwhelming margins. Overwhelming margins, both times, on the referendum and on Prop 8. Overwhelming victories at the ballot box. There were people in African-American churches who said, I will vote with Obama. I support traditional marriage. Of course, a lot of people like me were saying he's lying to you about that, but nobody believed me. Friends, we are at a place now where there are literally no roadblocks left to block. And just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a prominent activist in the redefining marriage movement said when sexual liberties, which are the new liberties now suddenly discovered in the Constitution. I didn't know the Constitution protected sexual liberties. I knew about freedom of speech and religious liberties. I didn't know about sexual liberties, but evidently they're there somewhere. But the activist said when sexual liberties are at odds with religious liberties, it is incumbent upon a judge in a secular government to side with the sexual liberties. And every day this week, I've brought a story onto this broadcast that has demonstrated how those two ideas are in conflict, and every time the culture has sided with the sexual side. A pastor here in New York disinvited from being part of the Martin Luther King 50th March on Washington simply because he was acting as a homosexual and has not, and says that God has delivered him of that and encourages other people to be delivered of it too. That is such a hateful message that now he must be physically restrained from being able to have influence on anybody else. Friends, is anybody awake? Is anybody listening? This is the sewer stream that we now have in America. America is no longer the land of the free and the home of the brave. America is now the land of get my freak on, and the home of who can I send to jail for contradicting me when I do. That's the new vision of what America is. Who can I have sex with, and who can I send to jail if they make me mad, criticizing me for doing it? Think about the greatness and the magnitude of what this country has been, and then think about how narrow and small and stupid and so insignificant we have become. Breaks my heart because I want to leave a better country than I inherited, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I think my sons are going to have to be prepared for a culture that is so different than anything I can relate to that I'm not even sure I'm up to the task of being able to train them properly, though God help me if it is the last thing I do when he cracks my dead knuckles off this microphone. I will die trying. There will not be a day that my boys are not prayed for and asked spiritual warfare in favor of, as I hope and pray and do all that I can to try to grow them into godly men that are going to, I hope, I pray that they are leaders for their generation. But friends, it's time to stop playing around. We get on talk radio, we get our little newsletters, we go to church, we have our little voter drive. We think we've done something big. God looks at what America is, and he's taken away different elements of his common grace. And as that grace is removed, what we are going to see it replaced with is going to be unlike anything we've seen before. And if you dare to believe anything other than what they say, you will be the problem. Welcome to the new United States of America. 888-589-8840. Let's take some calls. Thank you for your patience today. I've had a lot to talk about. Let's go to Hayden calling from Texas. Hayden, you're up first with Kevin McCullough on AFR Talk. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I just differed with you a little bit earlier today on your show. I believe that we haven't necessarily lost the battle for traditional marriage forever because under the Constitution, the Congress has the authority over the federal judiciary. So I believe that when society begins to see the terrible consequences of accepting homosexuality, and if Christians will speak the truth and vote, we can elect leaders in the United States Congress that will strip the Supreme Court and other federal courts of their authority over this issue so that state legislatures can, again, create laws that will reflect biblical truth. And it's for that reason I think there is at least a glimmer of hope that we can win this fight for traditional marriage, similar to how we are winning on the pro-life front even 40 years after the Roe v. Wade decision.
We are going to win life. I'm with you there, Hayden. Have you seen one nation on the planet that has adopted gay marriage that it's ever been overturned on? The answer is no.
No, sir, not off the top of my head, but I think.
See, Hayden, and I appreciate your encouragement, and I love your optimism, and I'm an optimistic guy normally, so this is very out of character for me. But here's the problem: the tyrants in the black robes don't care anymore, and the pragmatists that prop up the progressives. So all your people that run around saying, one party's evil because Dick Cheney was part of it, but the other party is all good because all the preachers say that it is. When those people who vote, with almost no conscious understanding of what the issues are, election to election, and they cast their votes, and the progressives manipulate groups of people to vote for them. You now have a three-way triangulation of power of the ignorant electing the elite who appoint the judicial. And so you have this kind of unending triangle of corruption of power, subversion of law, and a willingness to purposefully subject the voters of we the people, the ones that are empowered to actually run the country, to subject them to the whims of the elite. And the church is absent, and the voice of reason and logic and rational thought are absent. Confusion is the name of the game, and flooding the streets of America with as much confusion and lack of clear thinking as is absolutely possible is the goal, and that's what they're doing, and it's why they're winning, and barring a massive miracle from God. It's why I believe the marriage fight is over. And it's sad. 888-589-8840. Stay with us. This is AFA Today. I'm Kevin McCullough.